Incoming call from the company's ISP. ISP, hello, your contract is expiring and we want to pick up the rented fiber router. Ops, I'll see where in storage it currently is. ISP, it should be active, because we see it is connected to port ZIS and blah blah street 42. Ops, can't be. The company moved from this office to the new office 8 years ago. Way before my time. ISP, I just did performed a remote check, logged in and it is perfectly operational as contracted. It also transmits fine and I can see data going through. Ops, okay, let me check and I'll get back to you. Ops reviews checklist from the relocation 8 years ago and finds fiber router marked with belongs to the ISP. Do not move. And thus was not moved. The new tenant in that office just put their network equipment in the empty rack space below it and connected it. The new tenant basically had free fiber connection for 8 years and no one noticed. The renting company kept paying and did not notice either. Only after they upgraded other locations and changed contracts, the ISP got them to figure out their equipment was left behind. 8 years ago. True story from 2019, but anonymized. I was in this meeting. 1A. U.S. military base in Europe was built using 110 volts as its planned power source. I believe this was done because at the time the base was only supposed to be in use for several years. A big challenge with this is a lot of equipment, like printers routers etc., had 220 volts plugs and even if it was dual voltage you needed power adapters etc. And this bugged the commander. He felt it presented a less clean look, and posed operational challenges. So he asked how much money would it take to convert the entire base from 110 volts to 220 volts and the guy in charge of the base power grid said well a lot and the commander goes I want to know how much, to which the guy in charge of the power grid for the base said just the amount of man hours that we'd have to dedicate to come up with a proper quote, would be in the tens of thousands of dollars and the commander goes well just get me a quote. So the meeting ends. The guy is bitching about his new task and I'm no electrician but I go to him, why do you even need to inspect everything to get a quote? And he goes to see what can be reused and I go and how much of the current grid could be reused? He goes very little. I go so why not look up what the grid cost the first time around, and double the price. He goes but that was like 10 years ago and I said hence why I said double the price. He goes what if? He says yes. I go how much do you think it would be? He goes honestly at least $100 million and I said you know he doesn't have the budget to do that. He goes true. Next meeting comes around. Commander goes and how much? And the guy goes $150 million and the commander goes $150 million to switch from 110V to 220 volts. And he goes yes and the commander goes why? To which he said cause you gotta change everything. Needless to say we kept the power adapters and transformers. FAQ. Why was the base on 110? I got no idea. The base was built in a hurry in middle of an armed conflict by the Army Corps of Engineers. Decisions were made. Why? I don't know. But insert valid point from someone who is an electrician or has experience in this field. Fair point, I'm not an electrician. TL, doctor, called in on my day off while I was cycling and had stuck-up clients staring at my ass. The cast. Boss me. In early 2021 I was out cycling on my day off. I'd left just before 7 a.m., aiming to do about 60 kilometers. When I reached what was around my halfway point at 8 a.m. I took a short break to enjoy the peace of the ocean, which was promptly interrupted by a call from my boss. Client /s database is down. I found the server off when I got in, so I turned it on but 5 minutes later it still wasn't working so I turned it off and on again. I tried calling tech who is actually working the day /, but he isn't answering. I should point out we shared offices with this client. They were a financial services provider and many of their clients were very wealthy. As a result, when we moved in our dress code went from polo plus jeans to business casual, which by their definition meant proper trousers, business shirt, dress shoes for the guys, and conservative dress, skirt, blouse, or pantsuit for the women. This is because the office had to have a professional financial services look to it. Apparently one of the new money-rich clients of theirs had complained. You know the type, Obvious expensive brand clothing, drives a Mercedes/Porsche/Maserati, oozes the attitude they are better than everyone else. By contrast, their old money clients were some of the most chill down-to-earth people you'd ever meet, and never guess they were worth 10 figures. The techs were not happy about the dress code at all. Yes, let's move servers around, get under desks, on our knees trying to move shit around while wearing business attire. So I'd be looking for some revenge for this for a while, especially given the cost of having to buy trousers and business shirts along with the time to iron them. The cause: there had been a power outage overnight and the server had not restarted automatically. It was later found that the power outage was just long enough for the UPS to trigger server shutdown, but power came back on during the shutdown so the normal power on AC restore didn't trigger. The attempted fix: my boss, who wasn't actually technical, tried to fix it by powering on the server, but after 5 minutes the databases hadn't come online, so they forced a reset which put the database into an inconsistent state on next boot. Normally with this system it was a 10 minutes wait from power on to fully functioning database, but they did not wait to ask anyone who knows. But I just did what you always say, turn it off and on again. That is for desktops, not servers. Oh. I explained the situation, that they needed to wait for the dev to arrive to fix it, that I couldn't do anything about it. I still need you to come in, they are our most important client. It was at this point I told her I was 30 kilometers from home and 35 kilometers from work. Oh, and I'm on my bike, so I'll probably be 60 to 90 minutes before I can be there. They insisted. Okay, but I'm putting it down from this moment until I leave work. Fine. I arrived at work hot, sweaty and in my Lycra riding kit, which I might add is so tight you can tell what religion I am. I spent the next hour assisting getting it all back up and running while walking around the office with messy hair, bare feet, and highly inappropriate attire to be around rich snobs. I copped quite a few hostile glares, some shocked staring, and a few of the financial advisors taking just a bit too long a glance below the waist. You can't normally tell under my office attire, but at the time I was very fit, so most of them didn't know until then just how toned I was. Cycled back home and had a new personal best for distance of 85 kilometers while getting paid for about half of it. Later my boss got chewed out for my appearance but knew they couldn't do squat to me because I complied with their demands to immediately attend on my day off. I no longer work there, I'm in a much better position with more pay and it's extremely rare I get a call on my days off. TLDR, equipment fails because wrong screwdriver was used. And #X200B. I was sitting at my desk early on a Friday afternoon when my phone rang. It was Kevin. This wasn't going to go well. Kevin, I'm assembling the units for customer / and one of the boards failed the testing. Me, swap out the bad board with another one. I'll look at the bad board later. Kevin, I can't. It won't come out. Me, what? Don't touch anything. I'll be right there. And #X200B. I worked at a small company. Everybody had extra duties in addition to their official jobs. The head engineer was also the network admin and handled all support for network issues. The head programmer was also the sysadmin and was tech support for the servers. In addition to my official duties, I was also tech support for all issues related to assembly and testing of our product. The extra tasks kept interfering with our real jobs, so more help was needed. Enter Kevin. Kevin was hired directly by the CEO, bypassing all of the unnecessary hiring procedures, such as verifying that he was competent. As far as the CEO was concerned, Kevin was some kind of golden child who could do no wrong. Despite all evidence to the contrary. And #X200B. Our company sold a specialized, expensive product / each unit cost far more than my annual salary. It consisted of a main chassis into which multiple accessory boards could be installed. The boards locked securely into place, but as extra insurance against them vibrating loose during shipping, each board was also held in place with 4 tiny screws. For reasons / we used Posy drive screws. Posy drive screws have a plus sign recess that looks very much like the more common, in the US, Phillips screw heads, except the slots are parallel instead of tapered. A Phillips screwdriver will not fit correctly, and trying to use one will likely damage either the screw head or the screwdriver. And X200B. The assembly manual had very clear instructions to only use posi-drive screwdrivers, that the screws must be tightened only by hand, and they must only be tightened until fingertips snug. Each assembly workbench had a copy of the manual. A laminated, full-page, bright yellow highlighted warning to only use posi-drive screwdrivers when installing the boards was mounted at each bench in a location that would be impossible to miss. 2 of the correct posi-drive screwdrivers were attached to each assembly bench with anti-static tethers, so it would be impossible for the correct screwdriver to be out of reach when assembling a unit. Also, there was nothing in the entire lab that used Phillips screws, so every Phillips screwdriver was removed from the lab, so it would be impossible to accidentally grab the wrong screwdriver. We made sure that every multi-bit driver set in the lab contained the correct posi-drive bits, and all of the Phillips bits were removed. All powered screwdrivers were banished from the lab. Clearly, it would take a very special talent to make a mistake with this part of the assembly. And X200B. Kevin apparently had that talent. I entered the lab to see Kevin struggling to remove one of the screws from the bad board, using a Phillips screwdriver. The screw head was completely stripped out, with nothing left for the driver to grip. Not just this one, but all 4 screws on this board. And all 4 screws on each of the other 2 boards in this chassis. And on all 3 boards in each of the other 2 units in the order. And X200B. Kevin had used a powered screwdriver with a removable Phillips bit to install all of the screws. Instead of stopping when they were snug, he kept on grinding away until the screw heads were completely drilled out. All 36 of them. And X200B. Where did the Phillips screwdriver come from? Kevin explained that he noticed that there were no Phillips screwdrivers in the lab, so he went to the hardware store and bought a new set for each bench. He also picked up a bunch of replaceable Phillips bits because they somehow seemed to be missing from all of the sets. And he brought his own powered driver from home so his hands wouldn't get tired. And X200B. I had to use a tiny chisel to cut a slot into what little metal was left of each screw head, so that I could get a grip on it with a tiny flathead screwdriver. After removing the bad board, I was able to diagnose the problem. The board was fine. Metal filings from the destroyed screws had fallen inside and were shorting some connections together. And X200B. Aftermath. I kicked Kevin out of the assembly lab and spent the rest of the day removing all of the boards, cleaning out the metal shavings, and then correctly reinstalling them. They all passed their tests. By the time I was finished, we had missed the last shipping pickup time for the day, so the units had to be shipped out on the following Monday. The CEO blamed me for the delay, because it was apparently my fault, not Kevin's, that the units were not ready on time.